4,000 years ago, a man named Arkad became the richest man in Babylon, not through luck, not through genius, but by following a set of rules about money. Those rules are still taught today. Save a portion of what you earn. Control your spending. Put your money to work. Protect it from unnecessary risk. They work. But there's a strange silence at the end of Arkad's story. After he became wealthy, what did he actually do with it? The richest man in Babylon is often treated as a foundational text. Its lessons are simple, clear, timeless. Pay yourself first. Avoid debt traps. Invest cautiously. Let time do the heavy lifting. Follow these long enough and something predictable happens. Money accumulates. Options expand. But notice what the book never really addresses. It tells us exactly how to build wealth, and almost nothing about why. There's no chapter on what comes after financial independence. No reflection on what wealth is meant to unlock. Financial independence is treated as the destination, as if the absence of financial pressure automatically produces a meaningful life. And that assumption has quietly shaped how most people think about money for generations. We pursue stability as if it were the same thing as fulfillment. The silence isn't accidental, it's structural. The entire framework was built to answer one question: how do I stop worrying about money? That's a worthy question, but it's not the only one. Fast forward to today. We still talk about financial independence. We just use different language. Escape the 9 to 5. Retire early. Buy back your time. The promise is familiar. Follow the right strategies, and one day, the constraint lifts. And for many people, it does. They feel relief. But the deeper satisfaction they assumed would follow, the sense that life is now purposeful, meaningful, that often doesn't arrive automatically. Because money solved a constraint, not a direction. It removed friction. It didn't supply meaning. When financial independence is treated as the final goal, money begins absorbing weight it was never designed to carry. Money becomes identity. Progress becomes net worth. In January 2025, a rocket booster the size of a 23-story building fell back to Earth at nearly the speed of sound, and 2 mechanical arms caught it. Mid-air. If you saw the footage, you know, it doesn't look real. The scale, the precision, the fact that it worked at all. But it didn't start with rockets. It started with a man who had already won. In the late 1990s, Elon Musk co-founded a payments company called X.com. It eventually became PayPal. In 2002, eBay acquired it for $1.5 billion. Musk walked away with roughly $165 million. By any conventional measure, he was finished. The game was won. Most people in that position would have stopped. He didn't stop. He poured $100 million of his own money into a company that had never built a rocket. SpaceX, founded the same year he cashed out of PayPal. Then he did it again. Tesla, betting his own capital on electric vehicles at a time when the entire auto industry dismissed them. Neuralink, the Boring Company. Each one a deployment of accumulated wealth towards something with no guaranteed return and no conventional business case. This was a man who already knew what he wanted before the money existed. He dreamed of humans becoming a multiplanetary species, not after he got rich, but long before. The money didn't create the direction. It made the direction possible. It wasn't the destination. It was the permission slip. And the moment he had it, the real work began. Arkad lived in the 21st century BC. He mastered the how. He built wealth in ancient Babylon, and history recorded the method. Save, invest, protect. The rules worked. They still work. Elon Musk is living in the 21st century AD. He inherited the how. 4,000 years of accumulated financial knowledge made it almost trivial by comparison. And he used it to do something Arkad never did. He answered the question Arkad left blank. The 21st century. Twice. 4,000 years apart. The same century number. The same starting point. A man who figured out how to become wealthy. 2 completely different endings. Arkad asked, "How do I become wealthy?" Musk asked, "What do I do now that I am?" One of those questions has been answered 1,000 times over. The other one is barely being asked. Musk is an extreme case. Billionaire-scale capital. Planetary-scale ambition. But the underlying mechanism doesn't require that scale. Think about what financial dependence actually does to a person. It doesn't just limit what you can do, it limits what you're allowed to say. Not legally, but socially and professionally. And in every room where someone else controls whether you stay. A man who is hungry and dependent will eventually learn to swallow what he actually thinks. Not because he's weak, but because the cost of honesty is too high. He becomes cynical. He calls it realism. But it isn't realism. It's the tax you pay for not being free. To the contrary, a researcher self-funding an abandoned project. A teacher building a nonprofit that teaches civics in a way she believes ought to be taught. In each case, the structure is identical to Musk's. Of course, the scale is different, but the mechanism is identical. Money is not the purpose, it's the permission. It removes the constraint that would otherwise make the work impossible. Or, in some cases, removing roadblocks that made honesty feel too idealistic. And once you see money that way, as permission rather than destination, the entire strategy changes. You're no longer optimizing for comfort. You're optimizing for capacity. The question isn't, how do I get enough? It's, how do I get enough to do what I actually desire to do? This channel is built around that calculation, not by someone who's already solved it, by someone who's running it, in real time. Because the alternative isn't comfort. It's slow, quiet surrender. In the 21st century BC, Arkad taught us how to build wealth. A man in the 21st century AD showed us what wealth becomes when it's pointed somewhere. But neither of them answers the final question for us. What is money actually for in your life? Not in theory, not in someone else's story, in yours. Someone watching this is thinking, isn't this just another optimization? You're saying chase money for a better reason while playing the same game, just with a different label. That's a sharp objection. And honestly, it might be partially right. But here's the distinction that matters. Optimizing for a number at best gives us a binary answer. You reach it or you don't. The question of what that financial independence is for is far more nuanced. We must find our own. And that's not a weakness in the framework. That's precisely the point. This channel starts where most stop. See you in the next video.